Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
Football.
All right. A little bonus episode of Purple Daily here today. And if you're watching on YouTube, you're seeing a glorious mustache duel between our executive producer, Declan Goff, and the Warren Sharp from sharpfootballanalysis.com, a 5-time Amazon bestseller in football and gambling categories. He provides, at least in our opinion, we've been following you on social media for a number of years. I think just some of the best analytical football content on the market. And his 2025 football preview book is out now. Sharpfootballanalysis.com. Warren Sharp.
Football.
Welcome to Purple Daily, dude.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate the kind words. And the 2025 football preview is out, and we're doing two things. Number one, you can get it on Amazon because it is 585 pages, this is what it looks like in print
that's
form.
like a phone book of football analysis.
Yeah,
dude.
that's awesome.
We're going to dig into the 2025 Vikings, obviously, for most of this show, but there are 32 teams covered here. But if you want the PDF version for just $1, because I can't give you the printed book for $1, but I can give you the PDF version for $1. If you go to sharp.football, it'll redirect you to the purchase page. Enter the code Vikings. You'll get this thing, 585 pages, for just $1. And I promise you won't get a better bang for your buck this summer to help get you prepared for the season than with that book. So.
Love it. Can Judd get one of those Hawaiian-esque shirts to go with it for like a couple extra dollars? Or?
That is an impressive
these Hawaiian shirts are actually cheaper than you would think. And so many different spots make these, and they're great for the off season in particular. Once it's regular season time, that's when it's like dark shirt, a more focused type of atmosphere. But right now it's the tan is getting better. The book is done. The tan is getting better, and the Hawaiian shirts are out.
Love it.
What's the relief like when the book is done?
It's immense because it's more stressful than you might think, because what my goal is with the book is not simply just to try to create a preview of each team's season. I'm trying to uncover things that aren't being reported elsewhere, that other people aren't discussing, that are storylines that exist that help describe why a team had success or failed the prior year, because I think that's important to understand as we enter the upcoming year. I definitely don't agree with the John Maddenism, you are what your record says you are. I think that so many things factor into why a team won or lost the number of games they did the prior year that aren't just reflective of that's a good team, that's a bad team, whether they had a good or bad record. And so I'm trying to uncover things that, intelligent audiences like yours would find interesting, that the casual football fan would find interesting, that coaches or analysts working inside of front offices or inside different NFL teams would find interesting, because a lot of these people read the book as well. And so I'm constantly trying to find things that are a little bit more groundbreaking. So it's a lot of stress coming and a lot of time that goes into the book as well. Obviously, it takes months to write the book. I have a fantasy guy who provides some fantasy analysis. We've got an injury guy who provides injury analysis, a penalty analyst, if you can believe that, who analyzes the team's penalty situations, all 32, and ranks and grades them. We've got a college draft analyst who comes in and analyzes the prospects that were taken by the team and how he thinks that they could fit in. So there's other people that are contributing to the book as well, but I'm the one who's writing all the narratives for all 32 teams. I take pride in trying to do that because that allows me to better gauge and compare one team to the next. If I was only writing about a couple of teams, then other people were writing about the rest, I couldn't accurately gauge whether I felt good or bad about this team because I don't know how I feel about the other teams. So I take it upon myself to write about all 32 teams. So it's a big undertaking. And as a result, it's a massive weight off my shoulders when this thing is done. And I love talking about my results with shows like yourself, over the next couple of weeks here as we approach the heart of training camp.
Yeah, so there's a million angles here, and Judd's camp notes have been a daily fixture for the last week, and then OTAs and minicamp. So we've been just hammering the audience with the intricate details of training camp. But from analytically speaking, I guess, from where you sit and all the work and research you've done, what are 2 or 3 of the most important themes for the 2025 Vikings?
One key is going to be, can you guys jump out to leads like you did in 2024? I think that was so vital because it allowed Brian Flores and that defense to play that they wanted to, with that aggressive, reckless style, to continue to generate turnovers and pressures on quarterbacks by putting those opposing quarterbacks in more obvious passing situations in the second half of games by building a lead early. And so if I look at some of the I'll pull up some of the stats that you guys had from a early down lead building perspective. You ranked number 2 last year in first quarter points per game after ranking 28 the year before. You scored 109 points in the first quarter instead of 40 the year before. You led by a total of 62 points at the end of the first quarter last year across your 17 games, compared to trailing by 29 points in 2023. And that swing of 91 points allowed your offense to stay patient. You had a pretty high run rate on early downs, and you were able to work the play action game off of that. You were able to connect on a lot of, we could talk about whether or not some of these big plays are going to be repeatable. That's one of the themes in my chapter on the Vikings, is that I don't think you're going to have nearly the level of success on these 20-yard downfield passes like Sam Darnold was having last season. But when you're able to build those quick leads in the first quarter, it makes life easy on your quarterback, which is going to be vital for a young quarterback in JJ McCarthy. It makes things a lot easier on a play caller because he can be more patient and creative with his calls in the second and third quarters. And it also helps your defense coordinator. So I think that's one of the key themes is, can you guys figure out a way to still stay aggressive enough with a young quarterback to build those leads? Maybe there was a tendency from, Kevin O'Connell to get a little bit more aggressive with a more veteran quarterback and do some more things with Sam Darnold. They still have to be semi-aggressive, in my opinion, with JJ McCarthy, even though he's younger, because you want those leads, and those early leads are so valuable. Another one, I guess, that I would say is, whether or not you can overcome this schedule. This schedule, you've got rest and you've got opponents, and the NFL decides your rest, but they don't decide your opponents. And from a strength of opponent perspective, you guys play the 5th toughest schedule based upon opponent win totals this year. That's going to be something that is going to be more challenging to overcome. But you also play a schedule that's going to have decidedly worse rest edges than last year's schedule did. You had the number 2 best rest schedule in 2024. This year it ranks number 21. You rank number 1 in a couple of my rest and prep rankings that I look at, because I spent a lot of time looking at NFL schedule and rest aspects. Last year you ranked number 1. This year you ranked number 25 in rest ranking and number 22 in prep ranking. You play 4 games with a rest disadvantage this year and only 1 game with a rest advantage. Last year you played 1 game with a rest disadvantage and 5 games with a rest advantage. So things turn a little bit more in that regard as well. So can you navigate the difficult schedule and the difficult rest in 2025? Those, I think, were 2 things that are going to carry a lot of water to determine how successful your season is this year.
How much does McCarthy taking the starting reins impact your analysis as well? Because when you're looking at the 2025 team versus the 2024 team, and I know the expectations going into 24 were pretty low for Sam, and he far exceeded them. But going with what essentially is a rookie quarterback with a roster that is pretty good and has been, in some cases, remade, how do you end up sort of viewing the McCarthy aspect of this?
The good thing about McCarthy in any lesser experienced, or let's say below average quarterback, which I did definitely viewed Sam Darnold as, is you're working with Kevin O'Connell. And Kevin O'Connell instantly raises the floor of any young quarterback because of the cheats and the hacks that he gives this player, on every single down. And so he uses the number 6 highest rate of pre-snap motion on first down last year is what he was doing for Sam Darnold, which gives Darnold the answers to the test before the test, right? With the pre-snap motion identifying coverages. Then he had the number 3 highest rate of play action on first downs. which is obviously vital as well, because you're able to get linebackers and other defenders out of position expecting a run, and then it's actually a pass. And so it provides a little bit of added separation for your receiver. The other thing that they were doing that was really unique, in my opinion, was they had a longer time to throw. Sam Darnold actually on these first down passes had the third highest average time to throw. But normally you would think third highest average time to throw, that means he's pushing the ball deeper down the field. He still averaged only 7.9 air yards per pass attempt, which was definitely closer to the league average. And that allowed him to complete more passes. His completion rate ranked 8th out of 46 quarterbacks on these play action passes. And so when you have a situation where you're using a little bit more play action, and then you're still not asking your quarterback to challenge vertically too much, but complete higher percentage throws over the middle of the field, I think that plays into the strengths of what JJ McCarthy could be asked to do, as opposed to ask him to do something that he's maybe less capable of, or gives him a little bit more consternation trying to attempt. So I think your play caller is going to provide some relief for a young quarterback. Naturally, it's a big deal to have a new quarterback and replacing a guy like a Sam Darnold, who's not elite, but more of a veteran and understands how to run offense in the NFL. So it's definitely a consideration. The main key, though, is, and I think Sam Darnold would struggle in these areas too, the main key is, how do we ensure that this quarterback is passing into situations where the defense doesn't have an upper hand? And in order to do that, it's passing the ball on early, not being afraid to pass the ball on early downs, because the defense might be expecting runs on those plays, trying to keep them out of third downs. And you guys had one of the most efficient early down offenses. On early downs, you ranked 4th in efficiency last year. So having an efficient early down offense to stay out of third downs, building those quicker leads to stay out of negative game states in the second half of games, all of these things will help a quarterback as well. So it's going to be a team effort, and it's going to be an effort from the coaching staff. But I certainly feel very confident that a young player like JJ McCarthy could settle into this offense and conduct it efficiently based upon where he is and what he's being surrounded with.
Warren, I know there's been a lot of talk, at least among Vikings fans, that the 8.5 number, the win total number, is a little bit of a disrespect because the roster is so good. But I know you probably have data on this, that it's pretty hard to put like a 9.5, 10.5 win total on a quarterback that hasn't even played a regular season snap. I guess, what are your kind of thoughts on that 8.5 number, and does it feel pretty likely that the Vikings they might regress a little bit from where they won last year, but are probably still a double-digit win team, even with a quarterback who hasn't played a snap yet in the regular season?
I think part of their win total definitely factors in that Ben Johnson is now with the Chicago Bears, and you play them twice a year. And so they are going to be a better team. So what is the worst team in your division? The floor of that worst team is higher than what it was previously. Your roster, I mean, we, on one of the pages here, we do our positional unit rankings, and obviously there's unknowns surrounding your quarterback. So we have your quarterback room ranked 25th, which you guys might find to be disrespectful, and hopefully they exceed that expectation this year. But other than your running backs ranking 17th, every single other position group ranks 10th or better, many of them 5th or better. We have, you guys, and you might be surprised, the 5th best offensive line. A lot depends upon how that interior 3 players do this year, because they're all new with Ryan Kelly, Will Freeze, and Donovan Jackson. But that group could be viewed as a lateral move. And last year you had your best success running in the interior. So your interior offensive line needs to still perform really well this year. 3rd best receivers, number 1 best front 7 in the NFL. You might have seen me share that stat the other day on social. And then 8th best secondary and 7th best head coach. So you are in a good position apart from that unknown at the quarterback. The question just becomes, you've got a tough schedule. It's tough on rest, and the Bears have gotten better. The Lions might be a tad bit worse. They're probably not going to win as many games in their team. Whereas I think, like, it's easy to say the Kansas City Chiefs won't win as many games. I think the Chiefs are actually going to be better this year. They're just not going to win as many games. Yeah. I think the Lions aren't going to win as many games, but they're also going to be a little bit worse this year. So that's a bit of a difference for me in that regard. But I certainly think that you guys and the Packers. I think the Packers are a scary team in your division. I think that they are a strong team in your division, and so your division just has top to bottom is the best in the NFL. And that's going to keep a ceiling on an estimated win total in that regard. And the way that they're coming up with these win totals, just to be clear, is they're looking at your schedule and they're looking at the number of games that I'm trying to pull up here, the number of games that you're favored in and the number of games that you are an underdog. And they're looking at the expected win share for each one of your games. So they're going through and they're lining every single one of your games. You guys might be surprised to hear that you're only favored in 7 games this year. You're underdogs in 10 games this year. And they look at the win share of every single one of those games. From this game that you're favored by X number of points, you might get 0.7 wins. You're likely to win this game 70% of the time. And then you go to the next game and you're likely to win this game 35% of the time. You add those up together and you get close to your forecasted win total. So your win total of 8.5 is more so driven by the fact that you're underdogs in 10 games this year. And that's what you might feel a little bit more disrespected by, that you're underdogs in 10 games this year.
Yeah, this is you kind of said it with was it the Chiefs that it's possible that they win fewer games. The Chiefs were in 1-score games the entire season, and the Vikings under Kevin O'Connell in the first year and the third year they have one loss in like 25 1-score games or something crazy in those 2 years when they've had healthy Sam Darnold, healthy Kirk Cousins. So like some regression in 1-score games has to be factored in. But is it fair to say that the Vikings may come nowhere near 14 wins again? Maybe they do hit the over and they win 10 or 11, but that they do profile as a potentially better team, even if their record isn't, or is that a bridge too far?
I wouldn't say that that's a bridge too far. You guys are just going to have to overcome some of the things that were unnatural last year and that are unlikely to occur again this year. One of the biggest things that I think you guys are going to have to figure out a way to either replicate, which is unlikely, or make up for, which is where I think is more likely. Otherwise, you're going to get a little bit worse, is the explosive plays out of the passing game. Defense, as you guys probably know, they're playing the 2 high shells more frequently. You have to have more plays per drive to work the ball down the field. It's harder to score touchdowns. It's more important to score touchdowns closer to the end zone because you're not going to score them from as deep on the field. And explosives are down across the NFL. Last year, Sam Darnold on passes of 20 plus yards ranked number 1 in success rate, number 1 in yards per attempt, number 1 in completion rate, number 4 in EPA per attempt. It not only was Darnold's best year ever throwing the ball 20 plus yards down the field, it was the 7th best season for any quarterback in the last 10 years. Wow. So that is unlikely to reoccur in 2025 with a young quarterback like JJ McCarthy. So as a result, you need to figure out other ways to offset that explosiveness that most teams don't have because it's harder to be explosive. You guys had it last year and it provided a lot of ability to score more points. What are you going to do to make up for that this year? And so I think that's one of the things that I would be most concerned with in terms of being able to put up points, which obviously leads to winning games and being a good team. I think you can be as good on, let's say, early downs and efficiency because I think your roster is fine. I think your coaching staff is going to put McCarthy in positions to excel there, but it's still going to be hard to beat 4th best on early downs. Like that's a really high mark for you guys to have set last year. It's going to be hard to beat that. So again, it's going to be difficult and challenging to say that, like maybe on paper from a roster perspective, I think you guys are better, but can you perform? And we know it's more important to be great offensively than it is defensively. Offense drives wins more than defense. Can you exceed some of those expectations on offense that you set last year? That's going to be the challenge. So what else can you do to make up for that?
How do you quantify too the additions that you talked about, the interior of the offensive line? Jordan Mason comes in. The expectation is that they are definitely going to run more now, including in the red zone, which is probably a point of emphasis. So how do you factor all of that in where it seems like McCarthy's not going to be asked to do as much as Sam did, that the run game will improve, and that the offense actually might have a little bit different flavor with O'Connell's play calling this season compared to last?
Yeah, it's going to be vital that you have that success inside the red zone when you're running the football. I think that there are a couple of times where it's important to be great running the football. Short yardage and inside the red zone, specifically inside the 10-yard line. I literally just put out a tweet that 75% of all rushing touchdowns come from inside the 10-yard line. So you have to be really good when you do decide to run the football, but that is where you actually have an advantage. It's hard to pass the ball successfully close to the end zone. The field is so compressed, but what you can do is you can spread the defense out using 11 personnel and then run the ball out of that and have better box counts and easier opportunities to run the football with your running backs. And so last year, the numbers that I'm looking at here show on early downs inside the red zone, you were 52% pass the first 3 quarters of games, which is what I like to look at to remove the fourth quarter. And I think that's like the 7th highest pass rate team in the NFL. So naturally you might expect, and as you alluded to, you're probably going to be running the football more there. Can you get that success? And it starts with the offensive line. You know, backs are a little bit more interchangeable, although we know there are some special backs around the league. You guys don't happen to have one. That offensive line needs to be able to generate that push, especially in the interior. And your coach has to be able to call good plays with great personnel grouping decisions to have success running the football. But that absolutely can offset a slightly worse passing game close to the end zone, is if you have a strong run game that you can rely on down there, because you will have personnel advantages just based on how the defense has to try to defend the passing game in that area, spreading the field from a width perspective, giving you the opportunity to run up the middle a little bit easier. So that's definitely going to be a big factor this year, in my opinion.
You have a section in the Viking section of the preview book that lists some key statistics that are kind of pillars for wins and losses and season win totals, and 3 of them here are turnover margin, penalty margin, and I love this one, return touchdown margin. Which is that? Could that be special teams or defensive return touchdowns all in one category? So last year, the Vikings were plus 12 in turnover margin, which when you have Sam Darnold as a starting quarterback, that's great when you're plus 12 and they curb the turnovers. Also, Brian Flores defenses create some chaos and create some panic within quarterbacks. So not super shocking, I guess, but plus 31 penalty margin, meaning the Vikings took 31 fewer penalties than their opponents. So like 2 per game, which that's a big number. And then thanks to Andrew Van Ginkel, plus 2 on the return touchdown margin, which could have been plus 4 because he dropped 2 of those vintage Andrew Van Ginkel pick sixes. But my question to you, Warren, is plus 12 turnover margin, plus 31 penalty margin, plus 2 return touchdown margin. How repeatable and or on the other side random are those 3 pillar statistics?
First of all, I don't know how you guys even got Andrew Van Ginkel. I don't know why Dolphins let him leave. I'm really impressed by his game. But how repeatable is that? Let's start with the turnover margin. That's going to be the challenge, because I don't think if you repeated last season, you would be plus 12 in turnover margin. When you look at Sam Darnold, say what you want to about like the statistic of turnover worthy plays, but if you want to acknowledge that statistic, Darnold led the NFL with 27 turnover worthy plays. He ranked second highest with 3.7% of his throws being charted as turnover worthy throws per PFF. So, you know, if Darnold played that season out again, he's throwing more interceptions than he actually did. And so it's going to be incumbent upon JJ McCarthy to try to limit, you know, the risk that he puts the ball into and those windows and the tight window throws and things of that nature. And again, that's also on Kevin O'Connell for designing a good offense to get receivers that are a little bit more open. So it's easier for JJ McCarthy. So he's not fitting the ball into tight windows. Another thing that obviously helps, I keep pounding the table for this, but if you're leading early in games, you can pick and choose where you're throwing the football a little bit easier in the second half. You could decide to throw the ball out of bounds. You could decide to throw the ball at a guy's feet if it's too close. You could decide to check it down to a running back. You don't have to force the ball. If you're trailing instead of leading like you were last year, then your quarterback has to push the ball into those tighter windows. Then you have to get throws out of him that you might not otherwise. Those are going to be inherently more turnover worthy for the most part. So that's going to be important. Penalties, the better a team is, the fewer penalties you're going to have. I think that should carry over from a coaching perspective. So I think that's one that's going to be more likely to be repeatable. But again, it comes down to also playing with a lead, having the opportunity to not have to go for that extra mile. Like think about this: you're 3rd and 10, and you're trailing by 8 points in the fourth quarter. Your offensive lineman might be trying to ensure he holds that block for an extra half a second or 3/4 of a second to give his young quarterback time to complete the ball. Whereas if you're leading and it's just a run play in that situation because you're up by 10 points, that offensive lineman might be less, likely to get a holding penalty called against him. So building that lead is also important there. Return touchdowns, that is the one that's like a bigger coin flip. But it, to me, once again, it relates to whether you're playing with a lead or whether you're not playing with a lead, how aggressive you can let those defenders be, how much pressure you get on quarterbacks. We know the more pressure you're getting on a quarterback, the more likely they are to throw a bad pass, the more likely they are to have a sack fumble or throw an interception. And so you need to be able to continue to get that pressure on them. And it's easier to do that when you're playing with a lead than behind. So some of these things do relate to just the game state in general, which is going to be hard to repeat from what you were at last season. But they're obviously all important metrics that helped you guys win the number of games that you did last year.
Warren Sharp. Let's go. Love it, man. Yeah, you can find all sorts more where that came from at sharpfootballanalysis.com. And throw that PDF link out again, Warren, for our audience.
Just go to sharp.football. It'll redirect you to the page that you can enter the code Vikings and get the 586 page 32 team chapter preview for the upcoming season for just $1.
I think we need a Judd.football too, just for, I don't know what's going to be on it.
That's
It'll just
far
be like
too much work for me.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to leave it to the experts for that.
But Warren Sharp making his debut on Purple Daily here. Great analytical breakdown of the 2025 Vikings, Warren. Thank you, man.
Thanks, Warren.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys. Best of luck this season. It's a tough schedule for you guys to overcome, but I think that you guys are pointed in the right direction. I like the future. I kind of lean into that at the tail end of my chapter. I think you guys are headed in the right direction here. I'm excited for you guys to build around a young quarterback that has a high ceiling, that's on his rookie deal. And I'm excited to see how he works with his new coaching staff, because I certainly think the rest of the roster is a fundamentally sound roster, and you guys are building in the right direction. So it's a good time to be a Minnesota Vikings fan. I heard in the intro about will they win a Super Bowl before we die? I certainly hope that to be the case, but I think you should at least feel good about where you are near term in terms of the direction that you're headed.
Yeah. Awesome stuff, man. Thank you again, and hopefully we can talk again sometime.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Right, Warren Sharp here, Purple Daily, where, as he said, we do just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. See you guys.